Good morning. This is Attorney Vince Davis, and these are my office hours daily, 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. To the title of today's live stream is The Top 5 Lies CPS Will Tell You and How to Respond. I'm, of course, Attorney Vincent Davis, and I want to say hello to everyone and welcome back to the CPS office hours. I've been practicing law for almost 40 years, helping families fight against CPS and the child welfare system, uh, primarily in California, but across the country. Today's topic is one that I believe every parent, grandparent, or caregiver needs to hear, and that is the top 5 lies CPS will tell you and how to respond. These aren't just myths. These are real tactics CPS workers use every single day to pressure and intimidate and mislead families. If you know of someone dealing with CPS, share the stream. If you're new here, hit the like and subscribe button. Let's get into it. Before this show started, I was texting with a relative in Tennessee. My client currently is in a foreign country, but the children are detained in Los Angeles. And it was incredible the way we were texting back and forth because she's had an opportunity to converse with the social worker here in Los Angeles County, as well as the minor's attorney. And this relative, along with the other relatives, have bought into um, the lies that they have been telling about my client. And unfortunately, these relatives are interested in keeping the children safe, and I don't blame them, but some of the things that they are telling the relatives are just not true. Let's jump into it. Lie number 1. You don't need a lawyer right now. Now, this is one of the biggest lies that, I've seen told over the last 35, 40 years practicing in this area. The reason why the social worker doesn't want you to have a lawyer is because they don't want you to know your rights. And this particularly becomes true at the beginning of a CPS case. And I think that it's something that you should consider. You should consider when dealing with CPS. Now, here's one of the lies that they tell, and they tell specifically on me. When a parent talks to a social worker, the parent believes that the social worker is their friend. That's not true. The social worker is not their friend. And the social worker will say something like this: "Oh, don't hire Davis. Don't hire Vince Davis. He's not a very good attorney. Don't hire Davis. He doesn't know what he's doing." One of the reasons why social workers don't want you to hire me is because part of my practice is I sue social workers for civil rights violations. And they don't want you to hire me because I might end up suing them in their county. Another reason why they recommend that you not hire me is because I happen to be pretty good at what I do. I get referrals from people, even other attorneys that practice in this area. They refer clients to me. Just in the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I've gotten gotten 2 referrals from one attorney who's very prominent and very experienced in this area. And he told the prospective client hey, you need to hire Davis. He's very experienced. He has a lot of experience in this area of law. So these are some of the reasons. Now, I want to also tell you that recently I'm involved in a case up in Northern California. I won't mention the county, but the social worker found out that I was taking over the case for one of the court-appointed attorneys. Now, this is a social worker that allegedly never calls the client. Well, he called the client and told the client she was making a mistake hiring me to represent her in the case. Now, luckily for the client, and I guess for me, the client said she knew when the social worker told her that she had hired the right attorney. Well, let me tell you something. In that particular county, maybe 3 months ago, I settled for a large amount of money a civil rights case that I filed against CPS in that county. And one of the reasons, you know, um, the social worker doesn't want to see me on the case is because if I find out a civil rights violation, I'm likely to pursue it. So, divide and conquer is one of the easiest and one of the oldest strategies in the world. And of course, the social worker tried to divide and conquer um, and to keep me out of the case. Unbeknownst to him, the fact that he said something like that even um, egged my client on more to wanting me to represent her in her CPS case. I hear this constantly that a social worker will knock on your door, say they just want to talk, and tell you it's not necessary to involve an attorney. They say, quote, "We're just here to help," or "Getting a lawyer will make things harder." Well, it's true, it will make things harder for them, not for you. Let me be clear. If CPS is involved in your life, you absolutely need an attorney right now, immediately. CPS doesn't get involved unless they believe there may be a legal issue. Every word that you say can and will be used against you. And you get no Miranda warnings with CPS cases. You know, like the police are required to tell you you have the right to remain silent. Well, CPS agents and social workers don't have to give you that warning. If a social worker ever tells you that, you should probably respond something like, "I'd be happy to speak with you after I consult my attorney." That's it. You don't have to argue. Just stand firm. Please do not think you can outthink or outstrategize or outmaneuver a social worker. Social workers are trained monthly, probably 8 to 10 hours at their job. They're trained how to get information, how to use it against you. You haven't been trained every month in dealing with governmental agents. They have. So please do not underestimate a social worker and what he or she can do. Get an attorney. Okay. That line number 2 was just trying to help. Now, I'm not saying every single social worker has bad intentions, but the social worker and the agency's job is to investigate and build a case. That's their job. They're not there to help you. They make money by building cases against you. The more cases they bring, the more kids they take, the bigger the budgets that they get to claim from the federal government, who pays for all of this. So even when they say they're trying to help, remember, they are documenting everything. They may even remove paperwork. They may even have removal paperwork ready to go before they speak to you. I remember one time I did a case in Ventura, and this was years ago, and the social worker wanted to come and speak to the child at the parent's home. So I showed up representing the father, and the social worker was a little bit aggressive. And so I decided to tell her, hey, you can't speak to my client's child unless you have a warrant. Now, this is about 20 minutes into the meeting. And the social worker reached down into her bag and pulled out a warrant. She had already gotten a warrant, and she had already told the judge certain accusations, and she was there to interview and to get information from the parents and from the child that could be used in keeping the child away from them. She didn't want to show the warrant because she didn't want to alarm anyone or put anyone on guard. So be aware what social workers' agendas are, what they really are. Social workers will act friendly. They'll try to get you to be relaxed. But behind the scenes, they're evaluating whether your children should stay with you or not. So, this is the suggestion I believe you should respond with this. I appreciate your concern, but I prefer to have this conversation with legal representation. Always protect yourself first. Always. Here's line number 3. This is just a volunteer safety plan. That's a big one. That's a big lie that they tell. This is just a volunteer safety plan. There's nothing volunteer about it. They make it sound like there's no big deal. Here, sign this agreement. Go to the classes. Don't see your kids for a week, just to be safe. But here's the real danger. When you sign a voluntary safety plan, you're giving up your due process rights, guaranteed to you under the federal and state constitutions. There is no judge overseeing this process, no attorney advising you, and often, if you don't follow the plan to the letter, they will use it as evidence against you in court. How many times have people called me after they signed a voluntary plan, didn't do the plan the correct way, or did the plan and the service providers gathered evidence to use against the parent in order to take the children away? You see, when social workers get a report of suspected child abuse, they don't have any facts or evidence. The only facts and evidence that they can gather is from your mouth. That's it. You will tell on yourself or give information that will be used against you, or sometimes you'll give information that can't be used against you, but it will be twisted and it will be altered where it can be used against you. I had a client one time sign a safety plan thinking it was temporary. CPS later filed a petition and used the document as proof that the parent had already admitted to wrongdoing. So this is how you should respond. I need time to review this with my legal counsel before signing anything. Now remember, this is about your children. It's probably one of the most important cases or situations you'll ever be involved in life. It's not a business deal. It's not about your house. It's not about your rental agreement. It's not about your employment, which are all important issues, but it's about your children. Do you really want to deal with a governmental agent, a trained governmental agent, by yourself without legal help? You know, I know everybody has seen the television and the movies when they say lawyer up. Well, this is the time when you should lawyer up whenever you're dealing with a social worker. You can listen to the social worker, don't respond. Tell the social worker you need to get your attorney on the phone or you need to consult with an attorney regarding what issues. They cannot make you talk to them. They cannot make you sign any documents. They will threaten you that if you don't, They will take your children. And most of the time, those are false threats. There are a lot of social workers that will fulfill and go through with the threat and take your kids. But think about the long run. Think about getting your children back. I tell most people if a social worker comes out 8 times out of 10, they plan on taking your child. The fact that they don't take your child but engage you in conversation before they take the child, it's because they're trying to get additional evidence against you from your own mouth. Remember, they weren't there when the suspected child abuse report was made. They weren't a witness to it. They didn't hear it. They didn't see it. But when they start talking to you about it because you were there, they get the information they need to use against you. And as I said before, many occasions people have told me it's not accurately recorded when it's presented to the court. And that's one of the biggest dangers of talking to a social worker is that they will misinterpret, misreport, or outright lie about what your conversation was regarding certain events regarding child abuse. And I want to tell you something. Anything you tell a social worker is not confidential. That social worker can be used as a witness against you in the criminal court system. So don't think that whatever you're telling the social worker won't be used against you. It can be and it will be. All right, line number 4. We can't tell you who made the report. So generally, social workers don't see the child abuse and it's reported to them by people, just regular people. Most of the time, mandated reporters, a school teacher, a doctor, uh, a counselor. And when when the social worker comes and talks to you, one of the things that they will say is, quote, "We can't tell you who made the report," unquote. This statement does have some truth to it. By law, the identity of the reporter is confidential, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask questions. First question you should ask: when was the report made? Number 2, what exactly did the report say? Number 3, what evidence do you have? Remember, the social worker may be using vague or incomplete information. Don't just accept their summary, demand details. This is a suggestion how you should respond. Can I please see a copy of the allegations so I know what I'm being accused of? You have the right to understand the scope of their concerns. A lot of times they don't want to tell you. And if they don't want to tell you, don't tell them anything. I actually have some personal experience. I've been doing this almost 40 years. And when my kids were about, I want to say 4 and 5, somewhere around there, my daughter is now 31, I think. So this is a couple decades ago. And I was representing people in the CPS court. Well, one day I came home with my wife, and it was a weekend, and there was a card stuck in our door. And the card said, Department of Children and Family Services here in Los Angeles County. We're conducting a child abuse investigation. Please call me. Now, I told my wife, well, first thing I said, well, what's going on? Because my wife's usually with the kids at home, and I'm thinking, well, what did you do? And it was that kind of divide and conquer mentality, and it was kind of the blame game. Well, I didn't do anything. What did you do? I automatically assumed that there was some child abuse going on, and I kind of panicked. So I told my wife, don't call them back, and I didn't call them back. Well, the lady over the next 2 or 3 weeks was persistent. She somehow got my telephone number, somehow got my wife's telephone number, and she came back to the home a couple of times and left cards. I realized that this wasn't going to go away. So I called her and set up an appointment for her to come visit my home with my wife. And I didn't have the children there. I thought, well, if you're going to come and detain the children, I'm not going to make it easy for you. So I had the children being babysat by a relative at a different location. The social worker shows up at the appointed time and she starts asking a lot of personal and intrusive questions. Most didn't have anything to do with the alleged report of child abuse. And I kept asking her questions about, what were the allegations? Where did they come from? Et cetera, et cetera. And she wouldn't tell me. And she said that, she wasn't allowed to tell me, which is halfway true. But at some point, because I kept asking her, and I did disclose to her that I was a lawyer that represented people in CPS courts, she said, "May I use your bathroom?" And she got up and she went to the bathroom, but she left the file open on my coffee table. I picked it up and read it. And you know what I found out? It was the weirdest thing. This is what they were investigating. During my children, young life, we used as a babysitter my paternal aunt. So it would be the great paternal aunt of the children. Well, during this time, she was going through what I will call some challenges in her marriage, and she was going to counseling. And unbeknownst to me, she had reported to her counselor that she sometimes babysat my children. And in the same conversation, she told the counselor that she was a victim of domestic violence. So the counselor, who was considered a mandated reporter, put 2 and 2 together and got 5. The counselor reported that my kids were under danger of being abused because of the domestic violence between the husband and my aunt when she intermittently babysit my children. And here they are coming to my house investigating me and my wife about suspected child abuse that was not reported on us, but on the babysitter. Do you get it? Do you even follow that logic? Anyway, she finished conducting the investigation. No case was ever filed because it was kind of absurd. Why would they file a case on me and my wife when the suspected child abuse might happen when my aunt babysat the child when her husband was present? The interesting thing was, at this point in time, my aunt and her husband had separated. They didn't live together. So there was really in my mind, no reason to investigate the case. But yet and still, they had this social worker basically stalking us to have an interview. And the only reason why I had the interview, because I was an attorney who did this type of work, and I had never been through this type of interview. I wanted to see what went on during these child abuse investigations. And it was a learning experience. It was a big learning experience. I don't suggest any of you go through it. Call an attorney. All right, lie 5. Lie number 5. If you don't comply, we'll take your kids. This is the scariest lie of them all. If you don't want to do what we say, we'll take your kids. That lie is told over and over again by social workers to people when they come and investigate a case. Now, can they take your kids? Yes, they can, but only with a court order or in an emergency situation. What they often do is to use this line to scare parents into agreeing to do things without a lawyer, into letting them inside the house, into drug testing for them, or interviews without any legal protection. So when a social worker first comes to your home to do an investigation, you don't have to talk to them, and they can never get a warrant to speak to you. They can get a warrant to speak to your children. They can get a warrant to inspect your home. They can get a warrant to take your kids, but they never can get a warrant to make you talk to them. So my advice is don't talk to them. Tell them to come back after you talk to their attorney. One of the other things is, and I can't believe that this happens so many times. Social workers will tell you or ask you in a very demanding way to take a drug test. You do not have to take a drug test. They'll say stuff like, well, we'll need that drug test, or we'll need you to drug test, or I want you to drug test. Go down to this laboratory and take this test. You do not have to do it during the investigative stage of the case. As a matter of fact, after the case starts, you still don't have to do it until after the jurisdictional hearing, which may be 60, 90 days down the road, and the judge orders it, if the judge orders it at all. So don't think and don't be fooled into taking a drug test. If you talk to a social worker without a lawyer, we've already talked about what the problems are. I can tell you that I don't think I've ever had a social worker welcome me to be part of an interview. Just the other day, a client calls me out of the blue and says, hey, social worker's at my house. She wants to conduct an interview. And I said, well, did you know the social worker was coming? No, I didn't know, just popped up. So I get on the phone with the social worker, and the social worker tells me, well, we can't do the interview without my attorney also being present, which is true. I said, well, if you want to have the interview now, get your attorney on the phone right now, and we'll have the interview, or you're going to have to come back. She spent about 30 seconds trying to convince me why we had to do the interview and why I shouldn't be present. And I didn't say anything, but I kind of chuckled to myself. She didn't hear me, but I'm thinking, boy, this is a tactic. This social worker really wants to interview my client without me being present. As a result, the social worker found out that I wasn't going to fall for it. She did call her attorney. Her attorney did answer the phone, and we conducted the interview. Sometimes when I do these interviews, especially in person or over the phone, they'll ask a question and I'll tell the client or tell them my client's not answering that question and to move on. Early on in my career, I used to argue with social workers' attorneys about why they could ask this question or that question. And now I just tell them, look, I'm not going to argue with you. Let's just move to the next question, or the interview's terminated. This is how you should respond, I think, to this particular lie. Quote, are you telling me you have a court order to remove my children? Question mark. I'd say 50% of the time they don't have that court order. Always call their bluff. If they don't have a court order, you don't have to comply. But I'm here to tell you that even if they do have a court order to take you or take your children into custody, don't talk to them because they're going to take your kids anyway, and anything you say is going to be used against you. I know that's easier to say than be done because as a parent, you're going to be freaking out, trying to make sure to save the children from being detained into foster care, and you'll just say anything and everything. Try not to do it. These lies are manipulative and often effective, but now you know how to protect yourself from the 5 biggest lies CPS workers tell. You know, if this live stream has helped you, please consider supporting our channel. We rely on viewer donations to keep information free and available to families all over the country. You can donate at the link in the description on the screen, and the ticker that's moving at the bottom will tell you how to make donations. And don't forget, If you want more detailed training, live support, and templates, join our Fight CPS School, SKOOL. It's $10 a month. It could save you and your family a lot of heartache. Thanks for watching our CPS office hours this morning. I'm Attorney Vincent Davis. Stay informed, stay empowered, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. I saw a comment that says, "Hey, you're still alive." I don't know if you know that. Yeah, I know I'm still alive. I wanted to answer a question um, that I saw in the post. Unfortunately, I had several questions and I didn't see them before I was ending the show. Um, Tomorrow during the stream, there is a telephone number. You see right on the telephone, right below my nose, it says, "Call Vince right now, 626-698-1700." We wanted to set up a call-in program like Bob Pace has on one of the other hosts of this shows on my platform, where you can call in and ask questions. All right. So if you're going to watch tomorrow at 6:30 a.m., call that number and we're going to see if our phone system is working, where you can call in, go live with me on the phone, um, and take your questions. Because a lot of times people type questions and it's really not clear or I'm confused. And if we're talking where everyone can hear us or hear both of us, it might be beneficial for us to try that number. So if you watch the show tomorrow at 6:30, try calling in that number. We're going to see if it works, if the number works, and if it doesn't work, go ahead and type a comment, in all caps that it doesn't work. All right, and we'll get that fixed. I'll talk to Grace, the producer, today. She works today, and see if that phone number is going to be working. Alrighty, I'll talk to everyone or see everyone tomorrow. Stay safe. Bye bye.